These people are not afraid of death. When I was reading and watching Viking mythology, the first thing that really caught my attention was how they were smiling while being sacrificed, and how they screamed wildly in battle, as if death itself was a victory. Then I started doing some research, and honestly, it was a really difficult topic to study. And if your car breaks down on a rainy day, you can really struggle. Yeah, that actually happened to me. While going through the Norse sources I could find, I came across a word I had always heard in Viking movies: Valhalla. Now let me tell you something very clearly. Valhalla is not a simple heaven for the Vikings. It is not just a place you go after death. It is a place you have to earn. But how do you earn it? By fighting? Think about it for a second. A Viking falls in battle, sword in his hand, taking his last breath. And at that moment, the Valkyries enter the scene. When I first learned this, I honestly felt a bit chilled. I still remember that feeling. Because these beings are not just angels who collect the dead, they choose it. They decide who goes to Valhalla and who does not. When I learned this, I remembered my grandfather. He never talked about Vikings, but he always said, some people see death not as an end, but as a transition. I didn't understand it back then. Now I more do. The Valkyries walk across the battlefield. They look at who is brave, who dies without fear, and the chosen warriors are taken to Odin's hall, Valhalla. Now stop and think about this. You spend your whole life working, fighting, surviving, and there is a place where you continue to fight, even after death. Sounds strange, right? But for the Vikings, this was a reward. When I first tried to truly understand Valhalla, I noticed something else. For them, death was not an ending. It was a kind of continuation. Once I went to Norway, in a small village, I saw an old Viking shield. The guide told me something I still remember. For these people, the greatest honor was to die in battle. At that moment, I thought, while we today want the longest life, they wanted the most meaningful death. The warriors who go to Valhalla gather in Odin's hall. They fight every day. Yes, you heard that right. Even after death. But then what happens? At the end of the day, their wounds heal, they die, and rise again. And in the evening, they sit at a great feast, drinking, laughing, eating. When I first heard this, I laughed a little. I admit it. Then I thought, this is actually an endless cycle. Battle, strength, brotherhood, and war again. But here is the most interesting part. The Vikings knew not everyone could go to Valhalla. Those who died from illness, old age, went somewhere else. Those who drowned at sea belonged to a different god. So even death was not one single path for them. One day, while explaining this, a student asked me, "Sir, why did the Vikings create such a death-centered mythology?" The answer is not simple, but I think I said this: because their lives were already intertwined with death. Cold seas, long winters, constant war. For them, there was no guarantee of tomorrow. So there was only today. And today meant fighting. There is another interesting detail. Odin is accompanied by two ravens, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory. When I first learned this, I thought maybe the greatest power is not knowledge, but remembering. Even the gates of Valhalla are not ordinary. Endless doors, thousands of warriors, all preparing for the final day. Because for the Vikings, this story does not end here. One day, Ragnarok will come. The final battle where even the gods will fight. And the warriors of Valhalla are preparing for that day. All of this death is actually preparation. Sometimes I think, while we today seek comfort, they sought meaning. And maybe that is why their stories are still so powerful. You know, the more I read about the Vikings, the more I realized this was never really just about death. It was about living in a way that made death less frightening. I don't know if I could ever think like they did. Honestly, probably not. But I do understand why their stories are still told after all these years. There is something strangely human about them. And maybe that's why we keep coming back. If you have watched this far, I want to tell you something. Mythologies like this are not just old stories, they are actually the oldest human questions. Why am I here? What happens after death? And what does life really mean? If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like it. And write this in the comments. Would you want to go to Valhalla? I really want to read your answers. See you in the next video. Even now, I feel those old stories whispering in the wind, and maybe somewhere. Valhalla is still waiting for those who listen. And remember, the story never really ends. Watch closely.